People of the internet, welcome back to another video. It is I, Don Thomas, back in here with another one. As always, folks, the likes, the comments, the subscribes are all greatly appreciated. Thank you so much for the support on this channel. Without further ado, let's go ahead and dive into today's topic. A video has been making its rounds on the internet recently. A short clip that I'm going to share with you guys. I want to get your thoughts on this, man. I feel like I've maybe touched on this a little bit before, maybe a few months back, when the viral first dates, places where women refuse to go on a first date, when that list went viral. I think I covered that a little bit, and I might have touched on this topic a little bit, but of course a new clip seems to emerge from one of these podcasts. I think the podcast is called Poor Minds. In regards to the threshold men must meet in order to date, and of course by threshold I mean financial threshold. How much should a man be making in order to be dating, right? Group of ladies gave their insight, gave their thoughts. I want to share the clip real quick, and then of course I'll go ahead and come back. We'll dissect it a little bit, and I want to get your thoughts, of course, down in the comment section. What do you think about this clip in particular, and then just dating in general?
So if you're making $50,000, don't date. I'm just being for real. You're not ready to date.
Again, I'm with you. When
You're not ready to. You're not ready to date because courtship costs.
Okay.
Everything costs.
Okay.
You can go for 22 walks in the park. Eventually, shorty is gonna need a sip of something. She's gonna be thirsty. This bottle of water is $3 in Atlanta. Let's not play. So if you don't have any expendable cash, don't date. And whatever that looks like for you, you might only make 50,000, but you live in a shoe, and now you got expendable cash. Or get you a bottom of the barrel bitch that's gonna date you when you have no money. If she doesn't have the expectation, and I'm gonna tell you this right now, enjoy it while it lasts, because eventually you're gonna want to run. Because she doesn't stretch you, she doesn't make you the man that you need to become. She allows you to be the stagnant dude in the same jeans for days. You know what I'm saying?
Be cutting up.
I'm
You
just
talk about
saying.
me.
Couple things, folks. I think she touched on a lot in there. And I dissected this, of course. Sometimes you come across these clips online. They're 30 seconds of a, hour-long podcast, 2-hour-long podcast. And you might have your initial emotional reaction, and then there's your logical reaction, right? When you ponder on it a little bit, right? So, of course, I've been seeing some other content creators cover this topic a little bit. As I mentioned, it's been making its round online. I thought for a little bit, and I mentioned I might have touched on this briefly before, but with Valentine's Day recently being just recently, of course, myself also actually living in Atlanta as well, currently as well too. I'm gonna play both sides here, folks. Overall, let's start with the blanket statement. I think overall, do I agree or disagree with her statement? It's like it's both sides. It's like I agree to a certain extent. Here's what I mean. First, let's just start off with her blanket statement. Her original statement was, if you make 50K or less, you should not be dating. That statement in itself, I disagree. I think it's levels, right? I think everybody could date if we really want to, break it down. Like, everybody could date. And then, of course, I'm assuming she's speaking about adults, but I always like to, don't forget there's high schoolers, there's college students, of course, whatever the case is. Depending on what age bracket you're in, whatever the case is. So to have a blanket statement and say, of course, I'm assuming she's talking about adults, whatever the case is, career, whatever, I'm expecting, I'm assuming she's speaking about adults, maybe their age, whatever the case is, maybe older. So in that regard, let's say we're talking about adults, I'll say anywhere from, let's say 25 and up, right? To say that to make 50K or less disqualifies you from a relationship, I think is a stretch. I think it's a bit much. I think that is levels. I think that there's brackets, as they say, man. There's levels. I feel like, one, ideally, if you're somebody that makes 50K or less in that situation, I think you should find somebody who is equal to you in that realm, financially speaking. What do I mean by that? If I'm a man right now who's making 50K or less, and I do want to date, I'm grinding, I'm going to work. First of all, let's not, I don't want to dive too deep into saying, oh, are they, worthy of love and this, that, and the other. But I feel like everybody can date if they want to date. So if I'm a man right now making 50K or less, and I am on the market to find a woman, I would say that I need to find somebody who matches where I'm at in my life personally. Right? So that could be, you know, we could work within the same realm. Let's say we're both, you know, and I spoke on talking about, you know, if you're a college student, let's say if you're a college student, okay, maybe we're both students. Whereas it makes sense that maybe we're not spending hundreds of dollars because we both can afford it, right? Let's say even if you're a young adult, let's say you're outside of college, whatever the case is, maybe you're living on your own, whatever the case is, I would still date within my realm, because I feel like that person, you know, the girl or the woman that I'll be dating in that circumstance would understand and would maybe even be going through that same situation as me as well, to where whether we're both on the come up, we're both trying to establish ourselves in our careers, this, and the other. So I'd say, I guess overall, as a blanket statement, gentlemen, you can date. If you're somebody who's making 50K or less, or however much you're making, man, you can date. I wouldn't rule you out on love. I wouldn't rule you out on, you know, trying your hand in the dating field, this and the other. But I would definitely recommend that you date within your bracket. I think that's respectable, right? I'm not saying anything too crazy there. I would say date within that realm of somebody who would understand, who too is in that, you know, isn't making extremely much more than you, maybe isn't making that much less than you, whatever the case is, as a man, right? As a man. Because the reality is, folks, men, whether you subscribe to traditional standards or this new modern world dating standards, I feel like men, it is expected of us to be the breadwinner, right? It is expected us to provide and nurture for our women, to look after our women, this, that, and the other. So I would say, don't set yourself up for failure, right? If you are going to date, if you're making 50K or less and you're on the come up and you're working right now, I would say date within your realm. On the flip side of that, again, she was referring to men in Atlanta, which I do understand. As I mentioned, of course, living currently in Atlanta at the moment. If you are a man that's making 50K or less and you're in any major city, and I don't want to say necessarily it matters where you necessarily live, but if you're a man making 50K or less and you are aspiring to attract women that that are making significantly more than you, or, you know, as I would say, the women on the scene, right? So women have a certain, especially in Atlanta, but depending on where you live, this might be, you know, true to all places that you live. Especially in the age of like social media, where it's just like women lead with the pocket, men lead with their eyes for the most part, right? I agree with her in an extent of saying, if you're that man right now that you're on the come up, and by come up, that means, like, you know, you're getting to it. You're not lazy. You're out here. You're grinding, man. You're trying to become the best version of yourself, financially, mentally, whatever the case is. I would then say, rule out dating, bro. 100%. If the caliber of woman that you're into, you just gotta, you know, let's just call a spade a spade. If the caliber of woman that you're into looks as though she is of the lifestyle that she wants to go on trips, she likes going shopping, she likes eating at fancy restaurants, save yourself that embarrassment, or save yourself that blow to the ego, and sit that one out. I would say, yes, you shouldn't be looking to court women of that caliber just yet if your pockets ain't right. Now, as I mentioned, of course, I did say that, and I do agree with that. When I mentioned, of course, when that list came out for dating standards of where women refuse to go, what are the cases, I did definitely say, if your pockets ain't right, rule out dating from your priorities. I did say that. But I'm saying that for the man that should know better, all right? I'm saying that to the man that, you know, does want to be the one that, you know, because gentlemen, like I said, of course, it is expected of us to be the one to front the bill, man. We're going to take care of that bill. We're going to, you know, want to take her back to our place, or, you know, get a nice hotel or Airbnb, or go to a nice show, whatever the case is. Yeah, all that costs, my friend, especially if you're living in a major city. So me personally, I'll speak personally for myself, man. In the past, and even kind of sort of now, when I was on the come up, I was on the come up. There was no time for dating. There was no time for courting. One, because I also have a philosophy as well, too, fellas, is like, especially if you're dealing with a woman that, you know, again, assuming you're dealing with a high caliber woman, or a woman that's sought after by different men, you're going to want to be a worthy candidate in that approach, right? You're going to want to be somebody who can pique her interest, financially, what are the cases? Let's say you have all the other boxes checked off, this, and that, yada, yada, yada. Financially, of course, it's us that comes out of pocket. So if you do a self-assessment of yourself right now and hey, man, I'm probably not at the level where I would want to be, where I could comfortably go out and date, whatever the case is, I would remove that from your list of priorities. Me personally, right now, I'll say this, full transparency, I got no shame in my game. I'm not necessarily opposed to dating right now. Now, granted, okay, financially, I might have said this before, I'm all right, I'm straight, so I guess to her standards, to this lady's standards, I do have the right to be out here dating. But knowing the type of man that I am, and this comes down to, of course, I am a man that likes to take care of the bill. I do want to be able to be the one that can, take her out, whatever the case is, pay for this, whatever the case is. And right now, being realistic with myself, I know that, and I even said this in the other video as well too, I know that, yeah, you might be able to go on one date. You might be able to go to one show, whatever the case is, and get 2 tickets, 2 meals, whatever the case is. But can you do that on a consistent basis? Can every weekend be a $200 dinner? Can every weekend be $500 shopping sprees? Can every month or every 3 months or every summer be tickets for 2 to, Jamaica or, wherever you want to travel to, whatever the case is? In my personal situation right now, the answer is no. And I have no shame in that. The answer is no. I can't do that consistently. So therefore, I'm not really out here looking to, court women necessarily, whatever the case is. That's not necessarily my main objective, because I know that I'm still on the come up. I'm still focused on self. Yeah, I'll dibble and dabble here and there, whatever the case is. I might, show some interest in few women here and there, whatever the case is. But I do know that, realistically speaking, when I do a self-analysis of myself, I can't consistently, at this current stage of my life right now, be the man that is paying for everything every single time, right? Then you got the gentlemen that go, 50-50, this, that, the other. Now, I personally, I'm not a 50-50 dude. I think there's been debate about that online as well too. Do you want to go 50-50 on the bills, this, that, and the other? I feel like that's definitely a traditional standard that was set. I think in modern culture now, I know that there's a lot of women that are maybe a little bit more down to earth and maybe doing well enough for themselves, so they're not opposed to that. But I'm noticing a trend, and this could just be an online social media trend, where women are saying, 50-50, I ain't going 50-50 with no man. I'm not going half on the bills and half on this, that. Nah. He got to take care of me. And I guess if that's the standard you want to live by, teach his own. I can't say that is wrong. I do know that I myself am a man that I don't really subscribe to the 50-50 again. As if we're going with traditional roles, I do know that I want to be a man that can provide, can protect for, me and my house, or whatever the case is. So in a nutshell, gentlemen, I say all of us men out here, knowing the game, knowing how the trends have changed, knowing the market value of these women and their expectations, you just got to keep it real with yourself. If you're a man right now that's making 50K or less, you can still date, my boy, but date realistically. I would say you could date, but I wouldn't be, especially if you're a man that's not where he wants to be at fully, dating shouldn't be your number one priority. But I'm not going to say it can't be a priority at all. But if I'm a man on the come up right now, I'm not expecting you to be in girls' DMs looking for a date every weekend. I'm not expecting you to be doing all that, my boy. I'm not. But I understand. Ultimately, man, I want to get your thoughts, folks. What do you think, man? Is it fair to say men can't date if they don't make X amount? I think there's a conversation about priorities. That's a fair conversation. Where your priorities lie when you make a certain amount, whatever the case is. I think that's a fair conversation to have, but I don't think it's fair to say, no, don't date at all if you don't make X amount of dollars. I don't think that's fair. And then, ladies, I'll say this as well, too. Let's just call a spade here, man. If we're saying that, hey, I got to be making X amount. What are the cases? This is why men ask you guys certain questions that you don't like being asked. When they start asking you, well, all right, cool. If I'm bringing 50K plus to the table and I'm paying for this and I'm paying for that, what are you bringing to the table? They don't like that. Women don't like you asking that question. They don't want you to say that, because they'll rebuttal and say, I am the table. Or they'll say, oh, I'm bringing this, that. I'm bringing. I've heard a lot of excuses as to what they bring to the table. But ladies, do understand, man, if you're looking for a man that makes X amount of dollars, you do know he has options, right? You do know that man that's making 100K, 200, whatever his bank account looked like. You got a couple zeros, some commas in there. You do know that man has options, right? That's why I'm saying the standards are not as realistic, because if you're looking for a man to make X amount, 10 chances to 1, you're not the only woman that's looking for that man. You understand? If a man has built himself up to this point where he's been able to be financially sound, financially set for himself, he has options. If a man has his own, right? Car, check. Career, check. Bank account, check. Some level of social status, check. All of that is good. You know, multiple women, he's on the radar of multiple women, right? So you ladies at that point have to ask yourself, hey, what am I doing to set myself apart from the other women that this man most likely has options for? The standards are going to switch real soon, because I'm coming across a lot of ladies, all this internet talk, all this, oh, I refuse to go here, and if he's not making this, I'm not, blah, blah, blah. All that talk is we're going to hear less and less of it as the time progresses, because slowly but surely people are going to start going back to the values that really do matter. Does he take care of me? Does he care about my feelings? Is he willing to protect me? Right? Is he, emotionally available, spiritually available? Those are going to be the values that you need to be focused on. Now, don't get me wrong. Money is important. It is. I understand. Money is important. But ladies, if you're holding that standard so high out the gate, it's slim pickings, because I think I even spoke on a video as well too. The average man in America makes $40,000. So think about that, ladies. The average man in America is making $35,000 to $40,000 a year. You understand? So we might see some of these conversations starting to dissipate a little bit, because the reality is, man, there's other qualities that people need to be looking for that kind of constitute what makes a solid relationship. Not the superficial stuff that you're seeing online and on social media. No, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the real things that families are built off of, right? But what are your thoughts, folks? I'd love to hear it. What do you make of this requirement financially of men having to make X amount in order for them to be worthy candidates of your affection? Ladies? Gentlemen, what do you think of women talking about some, hey, man, if you're not making 50K, you shouldn't be dating? What are your thoughts? Did you take offense to that, gentlemen? Fellas out there? Did you take offense to that? Does that apply to you? I want to hear from all the brothers, man. Gentlemen that are making less than 50, gentlemen that are making more than 50. What are your thoughts on that, man? Like I said, I personally feel like if you're realistic with your standards and the person that you are courting is realistic with their standard, that shouldn't be a problem. It shouldn't matter how much you make. Ladies, if he's down bad, you're down bad, y'all might be able to come up together. I think that's really where love is established, right? Where y'all came up together, y'all poured into each other together, and y'all both were able to get to a point where, but I do agree, if it's too much of a gap between financial status, what are the cases, then yeah, you're definitely going to come across some struggles, some hardships, what are the cases. And man, I know for us, it is sometimes a blow to our ego when we're not able to, keep up financially, what are the cases. So questions, comments, concerns, leave them down in the comment section. Of course, I will catch you on the next one.